dun. I'm trying to. Kind of a test week. See what works and what doesn't. And we're still working on this. So change that. Thanks. I'll have to add like a shading layer if I have her underneath a umbrella or something. But pretty much just chucking away. I'm almost done with the Pulchra art. All I really have to do for that one is add the background and whatever other lighting and stuff like that, and then it's pretty much done. So I'll try to have that posted tonight after the stream. You want to give her a lot of loving. Trying to get her ice cream. Nah, I'm not feeling that idea at the moment. And it's not so much the exposure. I mean, look at Tiffany. It's more about having to pay attention to the whole centaur part and figuring out how to pose her. Like, pose her properly. But just not what I'm in the mood for right now. And I don't draw enough horse anatomy to make that interesting for a stream. So that'd be something I would do off stream so I can properly figure out poses. Hello again. Hello. Do like a little bit of light on her. Some of this will be darkened by another shade later, so I'm just getting all the important bits. That's interesting. No, this is just, I'm just gonna post for fun. Most of the stream stuff is gonna be for fun unless it's like working on a certain comic page or something like that. Or if I'm working on something like really specific. But most of these streams are just going to be for like fun art. Because to like a degree, it kind of makes no sense to stream stuff that would be behind a paywall. Though most of my followers have said that they don't really care one way or the other if I'm streaming that stuff. So trying to have like a bit of balance there. With some sunglasses on her forehead. Maybe. We might add that later. Oh, True Ending Tiffany is so different. Only like 2 people have figured out what her backstory is. There's like 1 hint that's been posted, and like people have like reacted to it the way that I expected them to, but I don't think they've really pieced together everything that she's involved in. but only like maybe 2 people have figured it out. There's like hints in her bio, and then there's hints in one of the Ask the Casts. No, and again, like, not every character is going to be involving weight gain. Like, that kind of ruins the batch if I did that for everybody. And I know you're just like making up headcanon jokes for fun and all that. Like, nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to clarify where my headspace is with certain things. Because you gotta be more subtle with stuff, or else you kind of ruin the fun after a certain point. And the same thing goes for like other things, like being too obsessive with, like, you know, bondage themes, or turning things into robots, or mutations, transformations, stuff like that. Like, you gotta ease in on certain things, and then you don't want to give it to like every single character that shows up, because then it's just kind of like, oh, well, here's this scenario, see where this goes. And then when it comes to like storytelling, you want to write it where it makes sense too. Like, you don't want characters just being oblivious all the time when it comes to like certain scenarios. But again, like, this solely depends on if you're trying to be serious with your story, or if you're just, you know, doing it as like a more comedic style. And sometimes some stories shift from being comedic to serious, and sometimes that's a bit of a hard call to do, or a tough call, because when you start a series as being a joke and then you try to make it serious, it almost feels like all of the serious stuff was completely unplanned, and you just took whatever was a joke and tried to make it serious, and it's like super noticeable that it wasn't planned. Because, at least to me, things like Adventure Time fall into that category. So weird hearing that sound effect in this song, because I always think it had to do with like the security system in this level. Well, in True Ending, she was never fat, so you'd have to figure out how that even happened in the first place, if that's what the headcanon was supposed to be based on. And then, even if she was, there's already hints that would say otherwise. Okay, think I got all the important stuff. Oh, good evening. Yeah, the Lich was kind of like the start of a little bit more serious storyline. But then, like, there are some parts of him that they kind of half-assed. Like when he deals with Billy, they don't really let us see how that happens. It just kind of happens out off screen. There's like a brief like vision that I think Finn has about it, but that's it. They don't really commit to letting us see what happened. All we know is like, oh, he's gone now. Okay. No fanfare, no him trying to be the hero, because you gotta remember, Billy defeated the Lich at one point, according to their story. So it's like, dang, we even get to see like a whole sequence of, oh, it looks like Billy won, and then sure enough, you know, he gets, you know, taken over or whatever the case may be. So they kind of just rushed that. And then with the whole, is his name Sweepy? I think it was his name or something like that. Sweepy. The whole scenario with him is confusing. Like, I understand what they did to make him show up, but then when they have the whole like influence of the Lich thing, it's just kind of like they make the Lich seem so weak in comparison that it's confusing. And then there's the whole extra content with the whole aftermath with Simon and all that, and it's like, okay, they're just kind of like letting things just kind of drop off, and there's no like real, like, aside from, okay, we kept the world from ending, that was kind of it. And even then, it was just kind of like lackluster, if I have to really call it something. And then you have the ice thing, where it's like, okay, so how come this has its own scenario? I don't know. It just feels like there were certain things that were rushed, at least to me, or not completely thought out. Well, like the Lich was great until they started like hopping around whether or not he was a powerful villain or a serious villain, and then he just gets outclassed by like two other characters. Yeah, like there was just no context after or between Billy and the Lich, other than that Billy defeated the Lich at one point. That was kind of it. And even then, like when you do find out what happens to Bobby, like Princess Bubblegum just already knows the situation before Finn does, and there's like no context to that. She just immediately knows. So yeah, it just feels like there were either miscommunication or something was rushed, or they just kind of said, "Oh yeah, let's do this," and then didn't really think it through. But it is what it is. Like I don't dislike Adventure Time. I just feel it could have been better. It was amazing, but then it kind of makes you. Well, I wouldn't say amazing. It was good, but it makes you feel that that could have been its own story and not be a part of Adventure Time itself. Like, not like as the main Adventure Time. It could have been like a spin-off thing and been its own storyline, because it just feels like an additional story tacked on to what we already had, and then they had to like reshape what we already had to make that new story make sense within the world of Adventure Time. Because you gotta remember, like, everything that happened was like in the past, and then however many years or decades or centuries, however long that that progressed, then we get all the other stuff that happens in Adventure Time, and everything's so bizarre and out of place that it almost feels like two different shows. And then you have the whole like Fiona Cake thing where it's like, oh hey, yeah, we're gonna make you guys canon now, and that's its own like space-time stuff. It's like, oh, we're gonna make Jake become this super god, and I'm like, okay, it feels like you're just using characters as plaster to fill in the holes for something that you didn't really plan out. But that's just me. Like, that's just how I feel about it. Yeah, exactly. It just feels like they're two different stories that should have been their own thing. Because over time, we start focusing less and less on Finn. Like, Finn's not the one that saves the world or anything. He has little to do with it. Whether or not he's destined for anything becomes pretty much irrelevant, because they tried to make it look like, oh, he's the reincarnation of blah 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 blah, and this person was involved with blank and blah blah blah, and then that slowly gets phased out to him just kind of being there on the side. Like, he becomes a much less important character over time. And then there's like certain character retcons here and there where it's like, oh, these characters hate each other. And it's like, oh wait, they're lovers? What? Where did this come from? And then they have to like go out of their way to try to explain it, even though when the characters are first introduced, they have no connection whatsoever. Yeah, exactly. It's like they just retcon a lot of their own lore. Or whatever was set up, they retcon it. Because at first it was all just like, you know, fun and games and just random jokes and all that. It's like, oh yeah, like we almost died, and Finn is just like, what? Like with the train thing, it's like, oh yeah, that Jello at the end of after the cliff fall, that was genius. And Jake is like, oh no, that was an accident. Like, that was like their main gimmick for a while, was like you see everything being all super happy, fun, go lucky stuff, and then at the end of the episode, something really fucked up happens, like a character dies or something, or at least something bizarre happens during the episode, and then that was kind of it. And then they tried getting serious. And then you have the many retcons in Steven Universe. And again, I like Steven Universe, but there was just a certain point where I was just kind of like, what's happening here? Or it's like, man, we built up all this interest in this certain character or this possible context for something, and then we just threw it out the window. Oh yeah, the deer with hands thing was freaking weird. That just came out of fucking nowhere. We were just like, what the fuck is that? It's like, of all the things you could trip out somebody, like, they've shown, like, you know, ghosts and near-death experiences and all that. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. Fucking deer with hands? Like, what the fuck is this? And you just, like, kind of lose it after that one. You're like, ew, kill it, burn it with fire. Or kill it with fire. Obviously you would burn it if it was with fire, but yes, kill it with fire. But then there's like other things where it's like, you know, Peppermint Butler, where he's like, oh yeah, Finn, don't forget the thing you owe me. He's like, oh yeah, sure, what do you want? It's like, I want your skin. And then Finn's just kind of like, you know, shrugging off, and then Peppermint Butler's like, I'll take it from you in your sleep. And then that's like the end of the fucking episode. So like, they kept doing shit like that. And then later on, they got all like they're trying to make a serious story. It's like, oh, here's life and death, and then somehow they have a child. They don't really explain it. He's just kind of there. And then what? He kills death? What? He is death? What? He dies now? Oh, okay. We barely spent any time with this character, but okay. He just comes out of nowhere just to die. Or like how they were trying to say Jake was magical, but then he's not magical. He's like a alien or a mutant or something. Or some kind of like god, I don't know, whatever the hell they came up with. I forgot what they said. But yeah, they first they were trying to say he was magical or something, and then he wasn't. Oh yeah, he took their skeletons. But yeah, it's just, again, I feel that if you're gonna have a series that does something like that for the longest time, and then try to make it serious, at least show that there's a little bit more effort into it, or that you're not just making up a different story and shoving it into an existing one. Because that's what Adventure Time kind of felt like. It just felt like it eventually evolved into completely different characters' story. It was like, why did we focus on Jake and Finn this entire time when they're not even important? Random question: do you have any pet peeves when it comes to fat art? For me, it's character. Yeah, that can be one of them, because at that point it feels more like inflation or pregnancy art rather than fat art. It kind of depends on what I'm looking at to really have a gripe about it. It's like Like, there are ones where, you know, the character gets big, but then they don't, like, make sense in their own surroundings. Where, like, you can tell they're huge, but then they're still in a normal-sized house. And somehow the rooms just kind of shift space to accommodate for them. They're, like, unaffected by the confines of a building. Or they can break something and there's no repercussions, like they don't have to pay for it or anything like that. Again, it kind of depends on what I'm looking at, because a lot of the time I'm kind of just super chill about it, but if I'm trying to get into it for like the plot that they might have, then that's when I'm criticizing it a little bit more. I dislike when they show characters eating a lot, whether it be vor or just normal weight gain and all that, and what they ate doesn't match how they look in the end, like the end result. Like, you can tell me they ate, like, let's just say 3,000 cakes or something, but then they only look like, I don't know, let's just say the body type of Po from Kung Fu Panda. Like, that's as far as it goes, type of thing. So yeah, it kind of just depends on what exactly I'm looking at, but yeah, it's moments like that happen often. I felt like it would play better if they had started off with one episode having sudden shock happen slowly, vibe change. Yeah, it's like that, and having Finn and Jake be like more involved with the storylines they were trying to do, because it's like they're trying to focus on like Simon and or like Marceline and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, cool, what does Finn have to do with any of this? And he really didn't have anything to really to do with the story. He was just kind of there, and in some moments he has like some influence here and there, like, you know, turning the Lich into Sweepy and all that. But then when that happened, it was more like, okay, here's Sweepy basically dominating his previous personality or his previous self somehow, even though you clearly show that the Lich had control over his body for like the longest time, until it just stopped working. Then I'd have to rewatch the series. It's been a while, because like some episodes I've seen more than once, while others are a bit blurry, because I've only seen them like one time or so. And then you have like the whole Lemon Hope thing. I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And didn't really go anywhere with that. It's like, okay, we stopped this tyrant, but then he kind of comes back as a new personality anyway, so nothing really happened. And then we just make this one weird specific character like a savior for some reason, but that doesn't go anywhere. And then at the end of his journey, he just takes a nap, and he's just like alive for like 1,000 years, just because. Although I think they tried to explain that candy people are like semi-immortal or something like that in some way. Well, yeah, another thing that you kind of have to give them a handicap for is that a lot of that happened after the fact. So a lot of this came after Finn and Jake were a thing. So like whatever extra story that they decided to do was completely after the fact. So even if they, you know, got better with storytelling or just came up with better ideas, the fact that they shoved it into another story kind of tells me that they weren't sure if, or either they didn't get the green light to do it as a separate show, and then they just shoved it into Adventure Time just because that way they could tell their story and just say that it was part of Adventure Time, or what's the best way to say it? Or they really wanted to do it and just shoved it in anyway. And we're all just kind of sitting there going like, okay, what, like, this is interesting, but what does this have to do with blank? And the answer is it has nothing to do with blank. It's just here. And some of it kind of falls into like people just liking the ships of certain characters. It's like, oh my god, these two are together, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, sure, like I'm not against it, but why here and why now is this coming up when that wasn't the case before? And the same thing goes for like some of Marceline's background, where it's like she has all these abilities and they try to explain it, but then it's like, okay, but the context around this is confusing, like with the whole wolf, like the wolf scene where she sucks the soul out of one of the wolves. And I was just kind of like, okay, because they show like the aftermath, or not the aftermath, but they show like what happens when she does that, but why did they focus on the wolf for so long, type of thing? Like, is this supposed to be the party god, or is this lead into a whole other thing? Like, there's no explanation to why they lingered on that. It's like, oh, did the wolf pup die because its mother's soul was taken away? Like, we don't really get any extra context to why we lingered on that for a while. And I might be overthinking quite a bit of this, but that's just me when I notice something that doesn't fit. And sure, I'm sure that I've done similar actions in the beginning of my stuff, and I tried to like make it work later down the line without trying to ignore what I had in place before. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on certain situations like that. And that's probably why that falls into how I react towards certain weight gain stories. Because I wanted to, because I think overall I wanted the content to be good, and I want the story or characters or whatever to be good. There's just like certain things here and there that kind of like pull me out every once in a while. Like whether or not a character's personality fits the scenario that they're in, where they act like they're super intelligent, but then suddenly they're an idiot type of situations. Because that happens in the manga Metamorphosis, where the main character is supposed to be like, you know, pretty intelligent and good in her education and stuff like that, but then she just keeps making like a series of idiotic choices, and then after a certain point, once she hits a certain point, it's like, okay, what all of her decisions kind of make sense now. But in the beginning, it was like, wait, why would you do this? It's like you're not an idiot, you know what this is. But she kind of just becomes dumb for the sake of plot. I mean, it shows you improving as a writer and good start. Yeah, and I think that's and it's hard to. I mean, for me, I don't feel like I'm like a good writer or anything. I'm just I try to like bounce off of the context of what I've established, and then I've read more than enough comics and manga and other stuff and other like really good media, you know, like Cowboy Bebop and stuff like that. Like, you know, the well-known um, the well-known series and stuff like that, to kind of pick up what I should and shouldn't do in certain situations. And yeah, I've made like certain fan mistakes in early day stuff, like especially with the Sonic fan comic that I did. Like if I were to return to that, I would probably just reboot it because I know I can do a way better job now than I could back then. But I think some of it is because I'm trying to make whatever stories I'm doing make sense within the world that they're in, and not just make it like separated from the world. Like even like for example, I-Hat and World Gates take place in the same world and same universe, but I'm not trying to make them act like they're a separated universe. Like I'm not gonna say like in I-Hat gods exist, but in World Gates gods don't exist, despite them both living in the same world, type of thing. Like I'm trying to not ignore stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of Waking comics that I've seen have a less serious storyline, because I don't think they're made to go in that direction. I think a lot of it is just, you know, dumb fun. It's like, oh, here's this character. She's going to the bakery and she's gonna basically eat the whole quantity of goods in there. Like she's just gonna, you know, completely close out. And then it's one of those things. It's like, will they make a lot of money from them doing that, or is this just a silly thing where it's like, oh my god, I can't believe she ate everything? And usually in those scenarios, it's usually like a buffet, so it's like, you know, they paid like $20 and then basically closed the building because they ate everything, and that's kind of it. Like, there's no like nothing more to go off of. And yeah, you can see the characters return in like later stories, but it's basically like the same idea. And if we do have continuity, then it might be the character being fatter, question mark, or maybe like the best friend of the main character gets fatter because they've been hanging out with the main character for a while and they picked up, you know, it like rubbed off on them. That's usually the case that I've seen. So good to learn from the other media, get a vibe of my yeah, like always look at others works and stuff like that to figure out what you're doing right and wrong with your own work, like whether it's good or bad. um it's always good to learn because there might be something that they did that you didn't consider, so you should always do something like that. Never just shrug it off just because you think it's not good, or that it's, or even if the artwork isn't amazing, sometimes the writing is actually better than the artwork, and that should be something you should focus on. So never scoff at it. Just try to see what you liked about it, see what drew you in, and understand why it drew you in or why you liked it, in the way that it brought you in and all that. Like, you know, understand it more. So basically you're saying be sure to keep lore consistent. I mean, keep it consistent if that's your intention. If it's not your intention, then don't bother. Like, just have fun and do whatever. Like, you can have this giant world, you can say that, oh, in this world only certain species gain a certain amount of weight, or this species is magical, whatever you want to say. Like, establish anything you want. If it follows cartoon logic, then just go with that. But if you're trying to be serious, at least try to keep your lore intact. Like, pay attention. Like, don't just bend it just because you wanted to do something specific for a certain situation that may or may not come up again in the future. Oh yeah, I love Kate's Fridge. Well, the Kate's Fridge that I'm aware of is the one done by... Oh wait, I think Sugar Boy changed their name. It was Duo Right On when I came across them. Let me see if that's the one I'm thinking of. No, that's a different person. I have seen Sugar Boy before. But yeah, that's a different one. There's a version of it by Duo Ride-On of Kate's Fridge that was really, really, really good, and I referenced that in Marcy's neutral ending. But yeah, like that one was a really good one. And that one was like one moment in that comic was a dream sequence. I wonder if Pyrocynical has seen my stuff. I think he showed up in my chat on Twitch one time. I'm not sure if it was actually him or not, but I think he showed up one time. he didn't say much. He just said "yo" or whatever he said. I wouldn't mind drawing his character at some point. That'd be fun. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, so I played the Tetris music that I always play, and some like I don't know, like I don't know what ethnicity it was, but like some music thing tried to claim like 10 seconds of a song that shows up in the tracks, and it was from like the music I was playing was from Tetris World, but the claim was trying to say like, oh no, this is from our song. And I'm sitting there going, and I look at their song, I look it up and all that. Their song was made in 2005 and uploaded 2 years ago. Tetris Worlds came out in 2001, and they basically sampled from Tetris World. And even if the part that was sampled in Tetris World was used in another song prior to Tetris World, that doesn't matter because Tetris World existed before their song, and I wasn't even playing their song. So I don't know what kind of bullshit they're trying to pull with that. So I'm like, yeah, no. Funny, I've always suspected that Marcy's dream from the neutral ending was a reference to the dream sequence. Yeah. It was like a reference to that, and then I had her licking Blake just because I thought it would be funny. Yeah, if I do draw Pyro's character, I'll have to grab reference, because I know there's been moments where some parts of the character look different. So I'd have to try to find the most accurate version of his character and go off of that. I'm more amazed is allowed on YouTube than anything else. Well, YouTube is pretty lax with their content. It just heavily depends on what you're doing. And the sad part is some of their rulings are like super vague. And so you kind of have to wing it. And it's not like I'm being unmonetized anyway, so it doesn't really matter whether or not they age restricted or whatever. And but like, yeah, like one of the their rules are like, oh, if it's sexually gratifying, then it's not allowed. And I'm like, so anything basically, because anything has that potential. It's like, how do you even know what? How do you even know what does what? Because like you could watch a cartoon and say that cartoon is sexually gratifying almost regardless of what the cartoon is. Like even if it's like a baby show, I'm sure somebody gets off to it somehow. And I guess it's like if it's obvious, like obviously they don't want you to draw like, you know, characters having sex and showing like their dick on screen. Although there has been animations where you would see that, but they would blur it out with censors and all that, and yet those can, you know, get away with it despite you knowing what it is. Because according to the rules, even characters that are fully clothed can still be age restricted or not allowed in some way. It just heavily depends on the scenario and how it's being portrayed. So it's up in the air. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody who gets off the Ferris wheels. Like, come on. And some people like fat people. It's like, you know, there's really no winning, and it just boils down to who's having a bad day during the moment that they decide that something shouldn't be on YouTube or that something should be age restricted or whatever the case may be. It just boils down to who's having a bad day. And if you get lucky, most of the people will be into whatever it is you're drawing. Or whatever content you're making, because it was kind of like that Corey Kenshin scenario where I forget what game he was playing. It was a, I can't remember if it was the massage game or if it was something else, but like there was a game that Corey Kenshin was playing, and it got age restricted. I think it was age restricted or removed, one of the two, or demonetized something. But then you have all these other YouTubers playing the exact same game, going to the exact same scenes that Corey had went to, and they didn't get in trouble or restricted at all. And so, and even Markiplier kind of put that to the test, where where he was saying, like, you know, if he himself should be restricted or whatever if Corey was, because that was only fair, because that's the rules. And for a moment, Markiplier's was removed for a moment, but then they like re-established it. But then they took their sweet time re-establishing Corey's stuff. And it was just very awkward and confusing, because all that stuff was done manually, so it had to be somebody specifically going in to do that. So it was this whole bullshit thing. There's that thing in the game Watch Dogs where you profile somebody and it says they're sexually attracted to musical instruments. Yeah, see, that's why you can never run out of ideas, because you can always just come up with something completely fucking random, and if you take it seriously, you can roll with it. If you do it comedically, I think when you do stuff like that as a joke, or do it with comedy in mind, it only works that one time. But if you take it seriously, you can have like a whole fucking storyline and make it last like a lot longer than it normally would if you only did it as a joke. So yeah, you gotta see the potential in what you're doing, and not just like the now. Think of down the line as well, and not to like, oh, you know, how can we monetize this? Like, if you're thinking of if you're only thinking of how to monetize something, then it's extremely short-sighted, and you're not gonna really go anywhere with that, because in the end you're just gonna be sitting there trying to figure out what you did right when things worked out at first, and then you see it going downwards because you're like, oh, well, it was working before, what's wrong? Because you didn't understand what made it good. But when you're doing it for like the pure joy of the idea, and you know exactly what you're doing, then the money or whatever comes after the fact. The money is the reward for your idea being awesome. That's why you should never think about it. Ridiculous Cake talked about how stressing it is to post fetish stuff. Yeah. And that was its own problems, because YouTube's confusing, because they have YouTube Kids, but they let any weird bullshit get posted on YouTube Kids that is obviously not for kids, and they rarely do anything about it unless there's like enough people telling them what's going on, and then they'll jump in. And then YouTube itself is for ages 13 and up, which is, you know, fine, I guess, but that gets confusing when you see certain content that's on YouTube, especially in the educational areas. Then you have the stuff that's clearly made for 18 and older, which is fine. Usually that stuff gets age restricted, which is why, you know, Patreon and Subscribestar or any other crowdfunding donation sites are useful, because, you know, if they can't make money on YouTube, you got to make money somehow, just so you can keep making that kind of content. And then it makes me wonder, is like, well, why don't we just have like a YouTube Dark? And the only problem with that idea is that credit card companies are all pissy about mature content, which should not be their role, because their job is just to allow you to spend your money the way you want to spend your money. And so if YouTube Dark, or if they were to have a YouTube Dark, then that's its own like scenario where it's like, okay, we gotta figure out what's allowed, what isn't allowed, how do we make income from this, do ads go on this site, and if they do, what kind of ads, are they okay with it? Like most companies do not give a shit. They only give a shit if families complain, and the families complain because they're not watching their kids, or they're not paying attention to their kids when their kids come across this shit or it gets popular. Like, for example, Five Nights at Freddy's is not for kids. It's never been for kids, but yet kids love it because they see it all over the place, and it became slowly aimed at kids despite it not being a kids series. Let that sink in. It was never made for kids, and yet here we are. That's why the movie was dumbed down to a degree and less scary. Which is funny because it looks like they're trying to make the sequel more scary. Which is perfectly fine. Like, you don't need blood and gore to make something scary, just make it scary and make it make sense. Oh yeah, and then one of the biggest problems that you have people getting things confused on what is exactly considered adult content. Because you can see a character just be super busty in a swimsuit, and people will just say like, "Oh no, this is gooner bait," or "Oh, this is sexual content," or "Oh my god, I can't believe this is on YouTube." And it's like, bitch, it's just a character in a fucking bikini. Calm the fuck down. It's like, I have seen way worse in the fucking 90s, and that was when people made hentai on purpose. Like, they still do, but you don't see it as prominent nowadays. Like, you'd have to actually go out of your way to see it nowadays, but back then it was just there. But all that tells me is that there are a lot of people that are sheltered that do not know what adult content actually is. And that's just because I've seen it more than enough times to understand what I'm looking at. That, and being able to tell the difference between reality and fiction, like, that's another thing. People keep associating this stuff to real life, and that's another problem, because when you do that, you're just limiting what we're able to do with fiction, and it just gets more and more confusing on that end. Security Breach says it's a family-friendly horror series. Security Breach has its own problems. You gotta remember, Vanny was originally a murdering character with a knife, and she got reduced to nothing in Security Breach. She went from going to a extremely major character from Help Wanted to literally less than 5 minutes of screen time in Security Breach. Vanny deserved so much better, and they completely fucked her in that game. Like, her artwork had her holding a knife. Her toys had her holding a knife. And then they just pussed out and went for, oh, Afton's back, and everyone's like, why? Why is he back? Like, even Glitch Trap was like a bit of a head scratcher. Everyone was like, okay, it's a digital copy. We're not 100% mad yet, but at the same time, we're kind of like, did this need to be a thing? Probably not. But it was good for setting up Vanny, because it's like, okay, so the glitch is influencing her, and that's why we're gonna have her as the new villain. Nope, we're gonna completely do nothing with this character that we hyped up for an entire game, or for 3 games technically if you count FNAF AR. And then she just went in and nothing. We got absolutely fucking nothing. Yes, the only good thing we got from Security Breach was fucking Roxanne and Glamrock Chica. And I guess Freddy for dad vibes. That's it. That's all we got. Those were the only good things we got from Security Breach. Everything else was basically shit. I mean, Monty's not a bad character, but there was nothing to him. There was like nothing interesting about him. But yeah, everything else was just bullshit. And even the developers tell you that or they say that when they were making the game, they really overdid it. Like they went above what they were capable of. Because it's like, oh, the modelers gave us a 3-story building instead of the 2-story building that we had plans for, and they were like, fuck it, we'll just use 3 stories. And they had to like come up with reasons to fill in the 3 stories. And it's like, guys, you didn't have to accept that. Just do what was within your limits. But no, they just completely dropped the ball on that game. Like Ruined was a better focus of what they were capable of. They're better at linear games than open world. Which again is weird that they were even working on FNAF in the first place, because they only made like very small VR games prior. So it was kind of a weird choice by Scott to even pick them in the first place. But Help Wanted was good, even though they most of their content from that game was just taking stuff that happened in prior games and just kind of making like a Mario Party out of it with some new stuff. And then story-wise, I forget if it was Scott that was coming up with the story or if he just left it to them, but story-wise, by saying that the previous games were all just video games made by a rogue developer, I feel was more of a cop-out. Because the previous games at least had an ending that was really good. And then they kind of just spit all over that and made everything that happened in those games basically pointless. Because it was either pointless, because like if you go off of Security Breach and you see Afton coming back as Burn Trap, then it was like, okay, everything that happens in the first 7 games were pointless because Afton survives. Or you can go, if you go off of Help Wanted and it's like, oh, all those games were just indie games, then all those games had no point because they technically aren't a part of the story, other than like bits and pieces of lore that may or may not be true. So, good lord. Yeah, Vanny just had a great design and they just completely dropped the ball on her. FNAF is gonna unbelievably convoluted. Yeah, I think personally, once they stopped focusing on ghosts, that's where it started to fall apart. Because they're focusing too much on the science of everything. It's like, oh, I made this robot to do this. Okay, but why would you do that? Because of events that may or may not have happened depending on how you put together the timeline. And I'm like, it's like, it was so much easier with just ghosts. Like, you could have said that, oh, we took apart the original animatronics and made new ones with the same parts, not knowing that the old parts are still haunted, and then go from there. Like, the toy animatronics are fine. They're just fucked up because whoever harmed the children, they are fully aware of, but now they're getting confused because you're dressed like whoever did it, or you might look like them, so that could be the case. But then when you get towards like other stuff, like, oh, here's the sister location stuff, and I'm just like, okay, we have all this, but why? And then some of that doesn't make sense because you have repair guys that show up in that game. So I'm like, okay, wait. So we're in this underground facility. We're testing the animatronics with bizarre experiments. We're having to do weird, bizarre tasks to keep them maintained. There's at least 3 maintenance people working on this, so they're all fully aware that this exists. And it's like, what was the point of this area? Because originally it was supposed to be that they get rented out. That's why the Chica one is missing, because she was rented out. But then they never like expand on that. And then we don't even know what happens to the Chica one, because the other 4 disappear because they become entered. So then what the fuck happens to the Chica one? So there's like such head scratching. But then those games are retconned because Help Wanted says those games weren't canon, or are only loosely canon. they're still canon, but maybe it's up in the air on whether or not they're canon, because they said that only bits and pieces of the original games are canon now. We just don't know what is canon because they're cherry picking, and then now they're going off of the books as well, which were originally not supposed to be canon to FNAF, but now they are. But only some parts are. But we're not going to tell you which parts. Scream movies are trying to get versions of Scream. I haven't seen all the Scream movies, so I don't really have an opinion on that. I've only seen the first one, and maybe the second, I guess. I don't remember. What do I think of Diane Fox's Team of Bad Guys? Oh, she's great. I like Diane. I've drawn her 2 times. Don't remember if I drew her fat or not. If I haven't, then I probably will eventually do that. But I've known I've drawn her at least twice. Okay, got most of this. Good morning. But yeah, I personally I think FNAF was better when it was focused on ghosts. It made it way more interesting. Like sure, like learning about the killer was also fun and stuff like that. But I think once it got into the whole science thing, that's when it just became more convoluted. Because everything just kind of boiled down to an experiment, and then it's like, oh, are they trying to discover immortality or something? And I was just like, no, why are we focused on this? Can't we just focus on, hey, this psycho killed kids, stuffed their bodies into robots, and now the robots are haunted? Like, that was perfectly fine the way it was. And then they had to overly explain it. It was like, oh, it's because of agony, and that's in like this special metal, and we can melt them down and inject it into other things. And I'm just like, I'm like, you had me until all this came up. The sea bonnies, yeah. And again, like the Fazbear Fright books, or the Freddy books in general, they were not supposed to be canon to the story. They were just supposed to be parallel, like an alternate story type of thing, or like a revised version or remake. And then slowly they just started taking stuff from the books and putting it into the games. And they were doing that since Sister Location. I only tune into FNAF lore for game theory. If I remember correctly, the original reason Afton obsessing over is he was trying to bring his kid back to life. Well, yeah, that came up later as a thing. It was because, like, if you remember in the original story, the killer of the kids was caught, but was let go due to lack of evidence. Like they caught him. It wasn't like, oh, we couldn't tell because he was wearing a mask and all that. It was just like we caught the person who did it, but we couldn't do anything about it and let him go. Like, that was a thing. Yeah, but his partner came later. Like, we learn all about this stuff once FNAF World and Sister Location become a thing. And then the books, like all this started from the books, because in the books that's where they first talk about Afton, and then that got added to Sister Location. So at that point, that made you go, okay, are the books important or not? Because when the books first came out, it was specifically said that they were not canon to the games, but that they act parallel to the games. But then they just started taking things from the books and putting them into the game. So I was like, okay, so I guess we should read the books then. And obviously not one-to-one things were being put in, but they might as well have been the same thing. Because it's like, oh, here's this guy who made the Mimic, and I guess the Mimic's the big villain now, even though the Mimic is completely uninteresting as a character. It's like, really? Our big bad is just some robot that's copying other people? That's it? Maybe we'll get more out of it later, but it's just such a completely uninteresting character. And now we gotta figure out where this falls into the timeline. Because I swear to God, if they make it where it's been the Mimic the entire time, like Afton's been long dead, but it's been some fucking robot doing shit, then it's like, okay, what the hell are we doing? Yeah, if supernatural stuff is important enough to explain, then sure. But once you start saying that everything that there's a science to everything, then it kind of just defeats the point. I mean, it could be on par with Zelda. Zelda at least splits into 3 different areas, and then condensed it all into one once they figured out how to lead everything to the same spot. Like, I could see the Mimic as being like a host body for Afton based on what we have now, but it's still bad because nobody wanted Afton to come back after Ultimate Custom Night, or even after FNAF 6, because it was over and done with. He was burned, everybody was burned, everything was done. Then you have Purgatory, where he's basically trapped in hell forever, and then that's it. Like, everything was perfectly fine with that ending. And then Security Breach just, well, technically Help Wanted. Both of those games just kind of undo all of that. Like, they could have just been their own games, or their own story that still involved the FNAF characters, but it could have been like if you want, like, again, like, the whole point of the Mimic kind of makes less sense when you had Vanny. Vanny was literally supposed to be the copycat character of dressing up like a rabbit and being a serial killer and doing whatever she was going to do with the new Freddy location. Like, she was literally the copycat character, and then they dropped the ball on her, didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and then made the Mimic, whether that would be because of the books or their own storyline, however the creation of the Mimic creative wise came to be. And the Mimic basically became the idea that they were already going to do with Vanny, but with extra steps. Yeah, I know it's not him. I'm just saying it would make sense if the Mimic became his body, like he just jumps into the Mimic later down the line. It would be stupid, but it would make sense. And yeah, Vanny killed Glitchtrap, but not really, because she was already being, she already got influenced by Glitchtrap, and everything she's telling, everything you get from the tapes is a lie. And because one of the tapes you get is her telling you not to put the tapes together, but you get that later down the line as you're already putting the tapes together. So the whole point of Vanny was that she was possessed by Glitchtrap, or at least influenced enough to basically become the copy. That was the whole point. But then they dropped the ball on her and just took the idea and gave it to the Mimic, which again, I don't know if they were like having that discussion with the people making the book first, because the Mimic shows up in the books first. So I don't know if that was like a big discussion going around, and then that's how the game started to get made and all that. But they basically just redid the idea that they already fucked up on, and now there's just extra steps. It'd be like telling the story of Batman, but then you fucked up and you gave it to like Robin, but then you didn't do anything with Robin. And you just kind of drop it, and then you redo the idea of Batman again, but then you use Batman. It's like, we already did this. You tried doing it with Robin, and then you messed up, and now we have another Batman, or at least somebody copying Batman. It's like, what are we doing here? Or it's like, it's not Batman, it's the Joker now. But for some reason, he's copying Batman. It would be like that. Which, funny enough, Joker has done that in the comics, where he pretended to be Batman. He's also done it in the cartoons, too. But yeah, overall, I just think that at some point they need to like really figure out where they're going with all this, and if the payout even makes sense to do. Because again, at the end of the day, if all we're getting out of this is a fucking robot that's just copying people, then it's like, it all just feels pointless. And even if it's like, oh, it's copying people, but then it slowly becomes Afton again, like he takes over the body or some shit like that, it's like, cool, but it's still not as interesting and just seems lackluster, because we've already dealt with Afton like 3 other times, and it just feels like, okay, is this the only villain we're ever gonna get? And if we do get another villain, that other villain is just going to be something for Afton. Because the closest they ever got to being interesting about it was Vanny, and then they fucked up on that. So there's that. And then we're still trying to figure out if FNAF World's lore has any real relevance, because remember, one of the characters just dies with a pool of blood coming out. So who the hell was that supposed to be? Because I thought it was supposed to be Henry at one point, but then, or even William at one point, but then it kind of just didn't matter, or it was only just a game illustration. Because FNAF World does matter, because certain games still affect FNAF World to a degree. Because like, you could start with a fresh file, and if you play Security, it's either Security Breach or Help Wanted, one of the two. If you start with a fresh file and then play those games and then come back to FNAF World, you'll have a trophy based off of that. So it was like, wait, so this matters in some way. And FNAF World came out like came out way before Sister Location. So the fact that later games still affect it is questionable. What they could have done is have Michael, after surviving due to the mental trauma of his father, starts going starts doing what his dad was doing due to. It would depend on how you write that. Like Michael in of himself is also a problem because again they tried to do the whole like okay, animatronics inhabited your body. We don't know if they're fucking ghosts or not. They're just some fucking AI thing or whatever the hell they were supposed to be. Maybe they have agony, maybe they don't. I don't know. They keep going back and forth with that logic. But possesses body, somehow he doesn't die because of the same nonsense that they've explained. And now he's just kind of chilling. Then he burns up, and then I guess that's the end of him. Maybe question mark might come back because I guess nothing fucking is permanent. And then the Blob is just a horrible idea. That character is just a Y. But yeah, just after a certain point, I still enjoy the FNAF series, but the story has definitely, at least in the games, has gone downhill. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the movie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with FNAF 2. But I would say the first 7 games, were 8 if you count FNAF World, were fine. Got a little weird with some of the science stuff, but I think the ending was a good payoff. Well, with the first, like, 3 games, I think the idea was pretty solid. It was just, okay, the first game was, you find out a bunch of kids died and haunted the pizzeria. Okay, cool. Second game, you find out it takes place before the first game, and you see all the weird stuff going on. The animatronics were haunted beforehand, so that kind of makes you question, oh, so what happened before that? We don't really get an answer to that. But it kind of hints to the whole Bite of 87 thing with like, oh, we need you to stay close, we're having a birthday tomorrow. At least until you start taking apart that game's logic where you like, this takes place like this because of certain hints and all that, but ignoring all that, it's pretty solid on that too. Third game's like 30 years later, and you find out like, oh, it's the killer, and his body was inside this animatronic the whole time, and that's it. Like, and based on the actions you do in that game, that's supposed to kind of like be the ending. And there you go, the end. Then you have FNAF 4, which slowly starts going into the whole sciencey thing, but not completely, because they don't really hint towards that too much. But it was originally supposed to be a nightmare thing, or that it was all a dream or hallucination, or whatever the case may be, before it got retconned, because you find out from Scott that he does say that yes, elements of FNAF 4, or like not FNAF 4, but like his idea of the story did change after FNAF 4 because of both theories and other reactions. So he did change whatever original story he had in mind at that point, and that's probably why it started leaning into the whole sciencey stuff, because he was doing science fiction games and other stuff before FNAF was a thing. So it wasn't like he was new to doing sci-fi games, but you could tell that was the shift, because when sister location came out, that's when they tried to like explain a bunch of stuff or go overboard with the whole like, oh, well, we're gonna possess your body, but you won't die. And I'm like, bitch, how the hell do you know this? This is literally your first time doing this, I assume, because we have no confirmation on if they've done this before. When it comes to FNAF, it wasn't really corporate owners. Although I will say, when um, when Security Breach was being made, yes, there was meddling because it was being released. I think it was being semi-partnered with Sony in some way, and so they're being like, they're starting to get rushed on releasing that game. And again, some of that was due to Steel Wool being stupid with adding in way too much for the game and removing stuff and changing things. So there's like a good chunk of content that shows up in the trailers that does not show up in the game. Like there's voice lines that don't show up. There's cutscenes that don't show up in the game. Yep, still FNAF stuff. Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna talk about this for like the next hour and a half on Ski. But yeah, it's just, again, that's just me. Maybe if I ever make something similar, I will try to be as straightforward as possible. If I ever try to make some kind of spooky story or whatever, I'll try not to overly explain something that doesn't need to be explained. Or at least that I feel doesn't need to be explained. I don't think I've ever heard the soundtrack for this game. What's your take on Beastars? Well, if we're going off of what was portrayed in the manga and the anime, Legoshi's instincts don't really matter, because whatever storyline that was supposed to be, where they kept showing like that shadowy figure, basically amounts to nothing. And then Beastars overall had like some, I assume, editorial issues or something in the background, because there's a point in the story where Legoshi basically gets a stand, and then that idea is like immediately dropped. Like they focus on it for like a good chunk of time in the comics, or in the manga at least. I don't know if it gets changed in the anime or if they even gotten to that point yet. But they focus on it for a good while, and then it just becomes nothing, because it gets dropped. Because you could tell that Beastars was becoming something it wasn't supposed to be, because they were trying to make it more action-based and stuff instead of character-focused, which was the draw of the series. Because if you look at Beast Complex, because Beast Complex takes place in the same universe as Beastars, but it's more character-focused. And the storylines for Beast Complex is really good. It's also the comic that Legoshi first appears in. He's just unnamed at the time, and he shows up again later on in that story. So yeah, Beast Complex is just what Beastars was supposed to be after the fact. And then Beastars was basically like Beast Complex in the beginning, and then gets shifted over to more action-based, and kind of loses its identity a bit. Yeah, it was mostly just towards the end where it was kind of slowly becoming something it wasn't known for. Because it was like the last like 1 or 2 arcs where they introduced the whole stand idea thing, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? But then they like immediately drop it, and then like shortly after that they kind of just can finish it off with like, oh, here's the big battle with the main villain, and then it's over. And then Beast Complex comes out, and then that's more focused on just the world building, and it's so much better because each chapter is just focused on one or like a set of characters and how they like live in the world, and it's so much better. And like Legoshi shows up in it too, so like Beast Complex is basically both a prequel and a sequel to Beastars. So I would definitely recommend Beast Complex after you read Beastars. Yeah, Melon ruined it. He was just a completely uninteresting character. Like, he was trying to make this whole big deal about just kind of trying to tear down society or whatever the fuck his deal was. And it just kind of amounted to nothing. I was really hoping that when Legoshi came across the Komodo dragons, that that they would have focused a little more on why he was immune to their poison, because they reacted to him not being affected by it, but they didn't dive into it too much. Like, it would have been interesting to just see Legoshi's mention like, oh, I have Komodo dragon in my family, and they would have been like, what? Like, they would have just been like having like a trip over that. It would have been interesting to see them react to that, but we didn't really have that interaction. I know, right? Tiffany, like, yeah, you like all your bitching about nonsense about nerd shit is making me hungry. Go get me something. Oh, Walter Melon was a funny cartoon. If you've ever watched that series, I enjoyed that when I was younger. Or the Three Friends and Jerry, which are basically like, we have South Park at home. That's basically what that show was. But Walter Melon was like, oh, something happened to the superhero, I'll be that superhero for a while. So he's just like the temporary superhero or temporary stand-in for a character. Tiffany may have found a hell of a sugar daddy. That's like an idea I was thinking of doing, of like a character finds a sugar daddy, and like she can basically get whatever she. Well, I mean that's what Nora is. But like I could think of like another character outside of her where she can have whatever she wants, but she just has to get fat or something. But if we go off of Nora, her whole thing is that she has a sugar daddy, but she just has to do whatever kinky shit that he's into, which she doesn't give a fuck. She'll do it. Or Nori, not Nora. Blah. It's been a while. So yeah, which is why I had her in that one collector set where she's telling her husband, who, well, at first he was her sugar daddy, and then she married him for his money. But she tells him that, oh, we should go shopping, and as she's like giving him a blowjob. There we go. Yeah, let's fix that. That's better. But yeah, again, there are so many ideas to do. It's just a matter of time. And again, after the 23rd, and I find out what the hell I'm doing, then we can move on to better things. Huh, that's interesting. Anyway. Ta-da. Not gonna lie, I totally read a sugar daddy breaking. Oh, there are so many fucking ideas that I want to do. Unfortunately, I am one man. But I'm definitely gonna try to be faster once I have less to focus on. Or less work on my plate. Because I'm gonna get this done, I'm gonna get the Fat Lovers Club stuff done. I'm gonna work on another set for the collectors. I want to work on more bios. I want to work on more character art after I'm done with all the bios, because I'm trying to catch up on that. What else? Obviously, get back to the main comics. I want to work on World Gates again, Buckle again. There's just so much to do, so little time. But I will make it work once I have less on my plate. The hard part is that a lot of my stuff is mature, so I can't like stream everything that I'm doing unless it's on like Picardo, which isn't bad, but it kind of defeats the point of streaming in the first place if it's just going to be on some random site that doesn't really do much for me in terms of function. It's just like, yeah, I can stream this, but kind of just feels empty. And granted, I'm not making anything doing videos on YouTube, at least not at the moment. But at least it makes sense to stream more on YouTube, because at least that builds up to something. Or has the potential to build up to something. But yeah. And then once I figure out how I'm going to be doing this streaming thing, because if I'm streaming twice a day, or twice in a day, then I can probably break up how often I do that. So I can probably make it to like I do it on, let's just say hypothetically, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Or like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that. So that way I'm not like doing this constantly, and I have some time to work on the stuff that I can't stream. So yeah, this is again more of an experimental thing. Do I want that to be there? That is a question. Should be fine. Alright, so we got all this. Still need to do this to her. We'll do it this way and see if how I feel about it afterwards. I can always change it. That's the bright side to doing it the way that I draw, because I am able to fix it or tweak it. Such a subtle difference, but it's useful. Alright. Oh, episode 4 for Unguard, yeah. I'm gonna have to start working on that more aggressively pretty soon. Kind of been taking my time with it because, again, I'm in that mindset of I don't want to do too much work for something that I'm not even gonna proceed with. If I don't move on to the contest, and it feels like all that stuff was pointless. Did I blur this? Yes, I did. So I'm kind of just like, I'm still working on it, but I'm not like being aggressive about it. And even if I did get aggressive about it, I can finish it in time, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, so background. This is just one of those. This is just one of those offshoot things. So I'm just gonna bullshit with the background. No. So I don't need anything complicated. This will do. Put this in here. Because I can add whatever I'm going to add to it. So we got this. That is not the button I want to press. Thank you. And we could do this to it. Grab that. Has all the changes. And then we'll add like a blanket and umbrella over. Obviously we gotta make this huge to accommodate for. Of course, technically it should be more like this, because that way she can direct properly of who she's telling to go get her something, or the ice cream, or whatever it can be elsewhere. So either way it works. I'm just gonna do it this way, because it could be off in the distance or something. I'm gonna make changes to the image anyway. No, don't need you. Dun, dun. It's fine. Oh yeah, you fat as the queen of sea cows. Yeah, sugar mommy, sugar baby ideas are also a thing I've thought about. Okay, to you. Just depends on where to take things in the future. Yeah, that's fine. That way it makes it a little darker. Let's grab some fabric I can use as a blanket. If not, I can just draw it myself. Fabrics. We'll use this. First we're going to draw it. So, just make a shape. Make her fat ass too big for the fucking blanket. Actually, might be smarter if I do it this way. Blah blah. And let's change the color. Give her like a little bit of positioning to make it look like she tried to get comfortable on it. Yes, exactly. Have some parts of it all ruined and bunched up. Like she couldn't like get it to straighten out very well. But yeah, there's like other stories I want to do, like one character gets a personality swap with one of her friends, where she's normally thin, but like her friend like fucks around with a machine and gets their personalities either swapped or just that character's personality gets sent to like another character and they start becoming a foodie. And they don't notice it at first because to them it's normal that they've always been snacking when in reality they were never like that. And like the friend is like panicking trying to figure out what to do to fix it. But then there's like other stories that are non like waking related that I want to do, where it's like, oh, here's, you know, murderers, or here's this character who ends up becoming a cuck or whatever. Like there's so many other stories that I want to do. But I gotta get through the ones that I'm working on first. Get into magic stuff, or occult, or ritual stuff, whatever. Characters getting turned into robots, or cyborgs, or having their consciousness put elsewhere, or a brain, blah blah blah. And that was the original idea for this year before the contest thing came into play. And again, the only reason why I even bothered doing the contest was just because I was like, you know what? I might as well give it a try. Because I'd feel better doing it and failing than to sit there and wonder the what ifs. And that's literally the only reason why I'm trying. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to put a shadow under her thighs and all that. We'll do that after the blanket. Well, like what? Like the main personalities was like one was, like a nerdy, sciencey girl who's like kind of like by the books or whatever, or like just more strict, and then the other one was just kind of like a slacker, kind of chubby guy, and he ends up fucking around with one of her like experiments or science gadgets or whatever, and his personality ends up being mixed into her, and so she starts having his personality, like being a little lazy and snacking all the time, but then like quickly getting back to work, but then still like slipping in and out. So she starts putting on weight over time, and he's like trying to figure out how to fix his mistake, or if he even tells her because he doesn't want her getting pissed at him. That sort of thing. Oh yeah, the movie Feed. That was an okay movie. Wasn't like my favorite movie in the world, but it wasn't horrible. And then Slither was a fun one. I think Slither so far is probably the only weight gain movie that has actual plot that makes sense. Like it's actually weight gain focused to a degree. Like yeah, you have Feed, but Feed wasn't technically focused on that. It was more of the reason behind what was going on. Or not the reason behind it, but like the plot device. It was like, oh yeah, we're going after fat women. It's not focused on women getting fat, but we're going after fat women. Whereas Slither is like, here's this alien, it's going to make people fat. And then you see one of the payoff shots of the woman that's the size of a fucking barn. Like literally. Okay. Can I link these all the way I want? Yes, I can. Cool. So now we can bring this in. Alright, actually, let's do it subtly. Bread makes you fat. Completely zoned out while this, and I apparently made a new OC. It's like 80%. Ah, why are you here? Wait, what the hell? Oh, I see what happened. How do I deal with that? There we go. Maybe every once in a while I will have a character just fall into something just really like everybody knows this is stupid, but somehow this character just did not get the memo. So maybe I will make a scenario. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe eating X number of this thing would make me fat. And it's like, really? You didn't think that eating that much would make you fat? Really? That just went over your head, huh? Shit. Huh. That is a function I did not know was a thing. It's like, really now? You did not know that would happen. Kind of like that one comic I read a long time ago. Was it Seaside? I think that's what it was called. It was some comic where this girl wanted to lose weight, and so her boyfriend came up with a diet for her. Basically, he told her to like just have like a whole bunch of food all at once, and then that way she wouldn't like it wouldn't like spread out all day or some shit like that. And then at first she questions her like, wait, how is eating all this food supposed to make me lose weight? And then he explains to her something like, oh well, you eat a bunch, and then you exercise doing blank or like whatever he tells her. And so she's like, oh okay. So she does that before the summer happens, and she ends up getting fat, and she's all pissed off. She's like, I thought this was supposed to help me lose weight. He's like, what? Lose weight? Oh no, this is what sumo wrestlers did. I wanted you to get bigger. And so she gets pissed off and just buries him in the sand. I think that was the one I'm thinking of. I could be wrong. And then there was like another one of a woman who was supposed to be selling like exercise equipment, but in order to figure out whether or not the exercise equipment actually worked, she had to like put on weight so that way she could use the exercise equipment and show that it works the way they advertised. And so luckily they were able to sell the product, but then you see her just spending time trying to lose weight after she's blimped up. Sounds like the conversation between Marcy and Stacy. Yeah, exactly. That's a Kataha Bushta comment? Probably. Let me see if I can find it and see what if it says the author. That might be it. I haven't looked at that comic in years. I've had that thing saved since, I don't know, I think I was in college when I came across it. I really need to reorganize this stuff. And then the question is, did I move it? Oh, Seesaw Game. Is this the one? No, that's a whole different comic. Seesaw Game is the one where this bully tells this well, I don't think she was a bully. She tells her friend that he's too fat or whatever, and then she just starts eating his stuff, and then she ends up getting fat. I'll have to find it, but yeah, it's probably from that same person. You'll link it in the Discord. Alright, I'll check. Oh yeah, manga that focuses on that on it does a good job. And I will answer that question after the stream. Pigs be pigs. Not sure if I've read that one. Hold on, I'm just checking something. Go here. Yeah. Yeah, this is the artist that I was thinking of. Yeah, this definitely is. So yeah, I forget what the name of which one of the one it is, but this is definitely the artist that was doing it. Is this the one with their boyfriend? No, that's the one where I think she like tries to lose weight, but then like breaks up with her boyfriend or something, and then comes back and has her order a bunch of food or some shit like that. But yeah, that artist does great work. Favorite Waking episode plot? Unfortunately, a lot of them kind of end up being the same. Grande Seismic, yeah, I remember that one. Or the episode where Ron does put on weight. But yeah, a lot of them kind of end up the same. I don't know if I heard of that person. I'll have to look at that later. But yeah, a lot of them are kind of just character gets fat. It's probably a villain who like made something addictive. They get big. There's a bit of jokes here and there. Sometimes the character gets turned back to normal quickly. Other times they're just kind of stuck that way and they have to like lose the weight on their own. And it like ends with like a comedic character doing like a bunch of push-ups or whatever, or setups. Karis basically listed the artist name, the Kato Yabusa. They go by Kato, Katou. You can basically find their stuff. Let me type them out just to be sure. Yeah, Kato Hayabusa. They have a DeviantArt too. As soon as I find it. Or I guess that was somebody posting their stuff. Let me grab their name. That'll help. Without the spaces, please. Let me see if that's them. Okay, yeah. So I'll just put their name and the rest is up to you. So yeah, this is the artist's name. Yeah, most of the weight gain episodes in like animation are usually male focused, and if they are women focused, it's not like to a not too drastic, or they always make the body types balloon shaped, like they're not like actual weight gain shape that you would expect. So kind of just you can tell like it's mainly for comedy. It's not like an actual focus or like a. It's not like a plot that they were really gonna like go heavy on. Heavy on, but you know what I mean. They're not gonna do what like me or Ridiculous Cake or any other waking artist would do. I think the lines are too thick for this, so I'm gonna condense it. Let's try 2 pixels. How's that look? Not bad, but let's do more. Let's try another 2 pixels. There we go. That's not bad. And then we'll just put like the bottom part of an umbrella behind it, so that way it fits. I'll do that after I do the main shading and stuff for it. Yeah, there was Tasty Paste was probably the closest, or one of the closest. But then at the end of the day, it was just a dream sequence, so it wasn't even anything that was canonical to the world. And then for Totally Spies, it was kind of close as well. But then it just ends up becoming like they focused it. They made it more of a joke because most of the stuff that happens to the girls in Totally Spies usually happens to Clover in the beginning, and then they started doing it more to the other girls. But yeah, like they all like basically reached like a limit to their size, so that way they would stay functional, which makes sense given the scenarios that they were in. So yeah, I would say that Totally Spies is probably the closest one to like taking it seriously while still being comedic with it. Do 80%. That should be fine. Yeah, we'll lower it to 70. I have to look up that person too. I'm like horrible with names, so if I see the artwork, I can kind of recognize whether or not I've seen their stuff. This person seems familiar. I think I've seen their work before. Yeah, I think I have. This looks familiar. Didn't they do artwork for... I want to say they did artwork for that weight gain fan thing of Doki Doki Literature Club, but I could be wrong. I want to say they did, but I don't know if it was them, because I know there was like a group of people that worked on that. I'll add in the other stuff in a moment. Yeah, exactly. She'd be like, look, I sat over here on my own just so I could be left alone, and your dumbass is over here. If you're gonna stare at me anyway, then go get me something to eat. I mean, I can always add people if I want, but mostly this is just a focus on her. Maybe maybe when I'm doing like a comic or something, I'll obviously add more people, just so it doesn't look barren. And then plus the background, I just it's just an image. I could probably make it look a little nicer though. Debate on that. Let's drop this down to like 30. And fiddle around with the lighting a bit. this looks. A little better. It's almost like the background's a little blurred out from the light. Alright, we need the other part of the umbrella though. Let's do this again with a smaller object. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, need it bigger though, for what I need it for. Something to match her blanket a bit. Or towel, whatever this is. Technically this is a pad, but or a tablet, whatever you want to call it. But I draw on the physically with this on the screen. I don't draw. If I could draw this with a fucking mouse, that'd be fucking amazing. I mean, I do use a mouse when I'm like moving around stuff like this, like something basic. But if I could draw all this on with a fucking mouse, then Jesus. That would be something. Let's do like 80%. All that's really left is to put Tiffany under some shade. I'll treat this like a separate object. Do I look at actual BBWs and SSBWs for reference? Every once in a while, yeah. When I need to. Like, it's always good to look at reference of whatever you're aiming for. Transparent. Now the hard part is getting it in a way that I want. Because I'll probably have to carve out some of this. So that it fits. Probably just do like 30 or 40%. Carve out what I want, and then I can erase the rest. Ooh, that is a hard part. Hold on. Just kind of realized what I'd be doing here. So let's do it this way. Might fix that. Kind of a little too narrow. If Tiff was my girlfriend, it'd be so worth putting up with her nonsense. if I was gonna make a fat character that basically is like Tiffany, where she can be bitchy but still mean well, I could totally see a scenario where she treats like one of the main characters, or like she treats the main character who's like, you know, doing whatever she wants like shit, but then at the end of the day she's like come here, and she's like just smothers him with her big tits and big belly. And even though she sounds like she's being an asshole about it, she actually is soft about it, like really warm and sweet. I don't want that. So yeah, I'll probably have two versions, where one where she's in the sun and one where she's in the shade. Still want it to be noticeably darker. So yeah, we'll have two versions. And then let's just do this. For the edges. You know, it would really help if I was using the right brush. Seems a little too much though, so let's cut it down. Or maybe I can do it this way. Delete that. Copy. Overlay. Lock in. Do that. This way was better. I'll just have to slim it down, or do it this way. Just make it really subtle. Feels like I'm overthinking it. I'm just gonna delete it and just leave it as shadow. Okay. Alright, all that's missing is the shade underneath there, and then we're done. And then I can add in dialogue or something. Mega bitch on the outside, actually carrying on the inside. Yep. How the hell can you draw this so silently? What do you mean? Like a mini comic about a fatty who's Avenger segments. The whole Gunner word is confusing to me. It's like, are they just trying to like make up words to hide saying being into adult art because of YouTube logic? Because they have to use up bullshit words in order to stay monetized or not get age restricted. But I can fall into the whole joke. It's like, it's not easy doing this with one hand. Like, I can do that. I mean, for the most part, I am drawing this with one hand. The only time I use my other one is to press the C button on whether or not I'm gonna turn this into a brush or a eraser. It's kind of it, really. And maybe some commands depending on what I need. Just put this to like a 70 because there's obviously other objects around her. There we go. Wait, so if that works, why didn't this work? You. Overlay. Oh. Yeah, I can see why that wouldn't work. Even if I did, this would probably be like 10%. Yeah, this wouldn't be worth it. Or would it? Nah. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Alright, so did everything on her. Let me just double check a few things. I feel this shadow should be just a little bit darker. I think like 40 would be the limit. I don't know, it feels too dark. I'm just gonna stick with 30. It's mostly just because of that hand that's bothering me. But I guess it should be fine because it's not like she's not surrounded by other sources of light. So that should be fine. I'm probably gonna make her fur shiny. Like she put on something to come to the beach with. So let's go back to this layer and shine her up. select her just so we don't mess this up. You tell me Gooners aren't fans of the movie Goonies. I would laugh if they thought Goonies had something to do with the word Gooner. I would laugh. I would just love to for people who have never seen it and keep using the word Gooner and be like, oh, you want to watch Goonies? He's like, what the fuck is Goonies? That's some Gooner shit. And I was like, and I just sit there and laugh at them. I was like, oh my god, you're so fucking brain rot. I'd sell my liver for a comic that is even if it was one page. Weirdly, you could see that we're doing something not canon thing caused by being bonked on the head. Like again, a lot of the ideas that you guys have, I'm not against. I just wouldn't use it on certain characters. I would just save it for different characters. Because it just makes way more sense to do it that way. It's like, I'm not against it, I just don't want to use it for X character. Let's make that first shiny. Soften it up in some areas. Oh yeah. It's like, oh no, you don't want to get stuck at a donut factory. You might eat everything and get fat, and you don't know what kind of freaks up there would be so into that. Stares at the camera. It's like they are 100% self-aware that furries are into Luna, and at the same time, it's like, yeah, no shit. She's a hot furry. What did you think was gonna happen? It was like no contest. It's like, what? New furry bait? Awesome. They will become popular for several reasons. I almost want to draw like drips of ice cream on her chest, just because she was in the middle of snacking until she got interrupted. Draw like this and then we'll lessen it. It's always interesting hearing that some people became furries because of Zootopia. I was like, that's not a bad start. And then the real question is like, okay, which scene did it for you? Was it Judy on the computer? Was that what pressed your buttons? Or was it Nick doing something? Or was it the naked animal scene? I mean, there's actually quite a bit of ammo to go off of. Some people just don't know how the internet works, I swear. Yeah, pretty much. Anti-shedding fur spray for heads. That's pretty cool. That's useful. Like, that would be useful, like, to have a spray to protect your fursuits. First annual commission from Viro one day. Hey, it's a mini comic of my OC getting bossed around. Real talk, game designers are fully wising up that there's a huge market on the freak. I don't know why they're coming to this conclusion now. It's been a thing for decades. It's like the people who know what the fuck how the internet works, or just fandoms in general, are like, yeah, furries, why not? Of course we'll have at least one, and it'll be the hot one because they're always the hot one. There we go. That looks nice. Okay, think we're good. Can't think of anything else to do unless I feel like adding shines to parts of her that shouldn't have shines on it, so I won't do that. Think we're good. Maybe just a tad spots over here. Like really subtle. And aside from dialogue of her telling the viewer to get their ass over to the food truck or whatever food stand to grab her more junk, or grab her something. I could probably put like an object next to her to show that she's had more than just this to bring with her, but I think it'd be funnier just for her to have the person spoil her instead. Like, she had no intention of getting a bunch of food, but now that she has a patsy to do this, she's like, ah, fuck it, I'll take advantage of this. And yeah, we'll just have the shade be a separate thing, so I can have two versions of this, one with and without the shade. But yeah, so that's basically it. Let me do this. Where are you? Add this. So I'll probably add dialogue afterwards once the stream's over. But yeah, here we are. Beach day Tiffany. I should probably clarify and write her name as Fat Tiffany in the files, because I don't want this being confused with her standard form, because I want to keep the two as separate entities. I mean, it's not like I won't know this, but it's more about just organization. So there we go. Save. There we go. Beach whale, I mean, Tiffany. Now she has us to drain her wallets. Yeah, exactly. Also, it's less general to show fictitious anthro characters instead of people committing horrible. Yeah, like when it comes to furry characters, it's always a weird stance because we'll always use like certain creatures or whatever to do like horrible like violence and stuff when it comes to like media, because people keep trying to, or the general audience and social networks try to keep portraying humans as not being monsters, basically. Like they're like, when you really think about all the horrible things people have done throughout the decades and centuries or whatever, it's really messed up when you think about it. But when we use like creatures and stuff like that, we try to like dumb it down, where it's like, oh, you know, humanity is perfectly fine. It's kind of like the excuse where somebody does something bad, and then they say, like, you know, guys, I'm a human being. I'm foul. I'm not perfect. Blah 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 blah. It's like, I really hate it when they use that as an excuse for whatever terrible thing they've done. It's like, I don't give a shit if you're human. That means literally zero to me. It's like, you did something you know you should not have done. It was a horrible thing you did, and you did it anyway, and now you're in trouble and you're getting the consequences you deserve. You being human had nothing to do with that. You're just a terrible person. That's it. So, I don't know. I don't understand why that keeps being used as a... I mean, I understand why. It's just to try to gain sympathy. I understand why it's being used. It's just stupid. Anyway. So, I will post this soon once I put the dialogue in. And yeah. And then I'll move on to finishing off Palkra's art and get that ready to post. I want to be between Tiffany's thighs. She'll probably squeeze you until you pass out and then just push you off. And she'd just say something like pathetic. She's really like the Asuka of iHat. She's just Asuka. Except she doesn't speak German. But yeah, you guys have a good night, and I will see you guys for the next stream, alright? Okay, Ant. I will see you guys for the next stream, alright? You guys take care, okay? Bye-bye.